Okay, so you might have seen a little headline pop up over the weekend, something about a small earthquake down in San Diego County.
Yeah, I saw that.
We figured we'd use that as our jumping off point today for the deep dive.
Sounds like a plan. It was magnitude 3.5. The USGS reported it. CBS 8 covered it.
Right, a 3.5.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that doesn't sound huge on its own.
No, not really earth-shattering, so to speak.
Yeah. But it actually gives us a really good chance, to look into earthquake preparedness.
Exactly. And just the broader seismic picture for us here in Southern California. It's always relevant.
So that's the mission today, basically. Let's dig into what happened with this specific quake, what it might kind of hint at for bigger events.
And the really practical stuff, how to be prepared.
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's start with the details on this little wake-up call. What do we know?
All right. So it was a 3.5 magnitude, like we said. It hit Sunday afternoon, April 13th, 2025. Time was 3:54 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And location.
The USGS put the epicenter, the spot right above the quake's origin, about 3 miles south of Julian. So that's out in East San Diego County, about 5 kilometers if you prefer metric.
Gotcha. Julian. And, even at 3.5, sometimes you can feel those.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are.
Oh, definitely. And the CBS 8 report actually mentioned that one of their own reporters who was in Santee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is west of Julian, a bit further away.
Right. They actually felt the shaking.
Huh. So that just shows, even these smaller ones, they can make themselves known.
Absolutely. How much you feel, it depends on, the depth, the local ground conditions, stuff like that, not just magnitude.
Makes sense.
But the good news, thankfully, was that there were no immediate reports of anyone getting hurt or, any real damage.
That's always what you want to hear. Definitely a relief.
For sure.
But it does kind of pivot you to thinking, okay, small or big, what are you actually supposed to do?
Right. What's the drill?
And that CBS 8 report, they had a good checklist from the city of San Diego. They broke it down like before, during, and after.
Yeah, that's the standard way to think about it. Really helpful framework.
So let's start with the before, the proactive stuff. What should we all be doing, right now, before anything happens?
Well, the prep really does start way before any shaking. The city advice highlights identifying safe spots in your home.
Safe spots? Like where?
Yeah, like under a really sturdy table or desk, somewhere you can get cover, away from windows, mirrors, anything that could fall on you.
Okay, under the heavy furniture. Got it.
And also, just looking around your place, are there heavy things on high shelves? Tall bookcases that aren't secured?
Uh-oh. Guilty as charged on the bookcase front, probably.
Yeah, a lot of us are. But securing those potential hazards, bolting shelves to the wall, using museum putty for things on display that can make a big difference, stop things from flying around.
Right. Less projectiles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what else for before? The kit, obviously. The disaster kit.
Yes, the kit is crucial. If you think about what you need right after a quake, survival basics.
So top priorities, water.
Water is number one. At least a gallon per person per day. And you need several days' worth.
Okay, gallon per person per day. And food.
Non-perishable food. Stuff you don't need to cook. Canned goods are great, but make sure you have a manual can opener.
Good point. Power might be out.
Exactly. Energy bars, dried fruit, that kind of thing. Also, a good first aid kit is essential for any minor injuries.
Water, food, first aid. What else is key?
Flashlight. Definitely. With extra batteries. A whistle helps rescuers find you if you're trapped. Dust masks are good too. The air can get really dusty.
Hadn't thought about a dust mask.
Yeah. And maybe some basic tools like a wrench to turn off gas or water if needed, copies of important papers.
Oh, like insurance IDs?
In a waterproof bag. Maybe some cash and small bills because ATMs might not work. Blankets, personal meds, hygiene items. It depends on your family's needs too.
That's a pretty solid list. It feels a bit overwhelming, but breaking it down helps.
Just start with the basics, water, food, first aid, flashlight, and build from there.
Okay. The last before thing they mentioned was communication plans. Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. After a big quake, phone lines can get jammed, cell service might be down, power's out.
Right. Hard to reach people.
Exactly. So you need a plan before that happens. Agree on an out-of-state contact person, someone everyone in the family calls to check in.
Oh, interesting. Why out of state?
Because long-distance lines might work even if local lines are overwhelmed. It's just a backup.
Smart.
And also pick a meeting place, maybe one right outside your home and one further away outside your neighborhood in case you can't get back right away.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Plan B, plan C for meeting up.
Just knowing who's trying to contact who and where you might try to meet can lower the stress level a lot.
Totally. Okay, so we've prepped, we've got our kits, our plans. Now, the ground starts shaking. What do you do during the quake if you're inside?
Okay, indoors. The standard advice, and it's good advice, is drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, hold on. Break that down.
Drop means get down on your hands and knees, prevents you from being knocked over.
Right.
Cover means protect your head and neck with your arms, and if possible, crawl under a sturdy table or desk for more protection.
Okay, get under something solid.
And then this is the key part people sometimes forget. Hold on. Grab onto that table leg firmly.
Why on it?
Because the table can literally shake away from you if you don't. Holding on keeps you covered.
Okay. Drop, cover, hold on. Got it. What if you're outside when it happens?
Outside, the main danger is falling debris. So get away from buildings, walls, trees, streetlights, power lines.
Basically anything tall that could fall over.
Exactly. Try to get to an open area. Just stay low and cover your head.
Makes sense. And the third scenario, in a car.
If you're driving, pull over as soon as it's safe. Don't stop under bridges or overpasses or near power lines.
Right, things could collapse onto the car.
Yeah, just pull over to the side, stay in your car with your seatbelt on, and wait for the shaking to stop.
Okay, good to know. All right, so the shaking stops. It's probably pretty chaotic, maybe dusty, alarms going off. What are the immediate steps after?
First thing is safety check. Yourself, then others if you can. Check your immediate surroundings for damage. Is the building safe?
Be careful moving around, I guess. Things might be unstable.
Very careful. And check for hazards like fires starting or if you smell gas.
Gas leak.
What do you do?
If you smell gas or hear a hissing sound, get out if you can. Don't turn lights on or off. Don't light matches. Anything that could make a spark.
Right. And turn off the main gas valve if you know how, and it's safe to do so.
Exactly, if you're comfortable doing that. Same for electricity if you see damaged wiring.
Okay. What else right after?
The city advice also mentions putting on protective clothing. Long pants, long sleeves, sturdy shoes, work gloves.
Protection from broken glass and debris. Smart.
Definitely. And then be ready for aftershocks.
Right. Those smaller shakes that come later. Yeah, they can happen minutes, hours, even days later. And while they're usually weaker, they can cause more damage to already weakened structures. So stay alert.
Good reminder. Just because the main event is over doesn't mean it's completely over.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, so this brings us back to the scale. We started with this 3.5, which thankfully wasn't destructive.
Right.
But that CBS 8 report, it also talked about a much scarier possibility. A 6.9 hitting San Diego. That's a whole different animal.
Oh, absolutely. A 6.9 is significantly more powerful. The report mentioned a specific study from 2020 by the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, EERI.
Okay. And what did that study look at?
It modeled a hypothetical 6.9 magnitude quake, specifically on the Rose Canyon Fault.
The Rose Canyon, that's the one that runs right through the city, isn't it? Like parallel to the I-5?
That's the one. Basically from La Jolla down towards downtown. A major fault in a very urbanized area. That's why it's a big concern.
And the potential outcome in that study. It was pretty grim, right?
Yeah, very sobering figures. The estimated damages could be around $38 billion.
Wow. Billion with a B.
And tragically, they estimated potentially up to 800 deaths. Yeah.
That's hard to even comprehend.
It is. And just for context, the report noted a 6.9 would tie for the 13th strongest quake in California's recorded history. So a major event by any measure.
They also compared it to the Loma Prieta quake in the Bay Area back in '89, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was also a 6.9.
They did. And that's a useful, if scary, comparison for people who remember it or know about it.
Yeah, I remember the images. The collapsed freeway.
Exactly. Loma Prieta caused billions in damage, thousands of injuries, and over 60 deaths. So while every quake is different based on location and building types,
it gives you a real-world sense of what that magnitude can do in a populated California area.
Precisely. It really underscores that while we might not feel these little 3.5s very much, the potential for a damaging event is definitely here.
No kidding. And that leads into another point. They raised the overall probability for Southern California. There was another study mentioned.
Yeah, a 2015 study from the Southern California Earthquake Center, a CEC.
And what did that one find?
It estimated a 75% chance, 3 out of 4, of a magnitude 7 or larger earthquake hitting somewhere in Southern California by the year 2045.
75% chance of a 7.0 or bigger by 2045. Okay, that's a pretty high probability.
It definitely gets your attention. It highlights how seismically active our whole region is.
And they back that up with a quote from a local expert, right? Dr. Pat Abbott.
Uh-huh. Professor Emeritus of Geology at San Diego State. A very respected voice.
And what did he say? It sounded pretty blunt.
It was direct. He said, basically, we can't predict earthquakes, which is true, but geologically, we are overdue for what we estimate to be a 7.8 magnitude on the Salton Sea.
A 7.8. Wow. And overdue. That's the word that always jumps out.
It is a loaded term, geologically speaking. It means the fault hasn't ruptured in a long time, longer than its average cycle, suggesting stress is building up.
And the Salton Sea fault.
Yeah.
That's not in San Diego, but a quake that big there would affect us.
Oh, absolutely. A 7.8 down there, southeast of us, would cause very strong, potentially damaging shaking across all of Southern California.
Okay. So big probabilities, talk of being overdue. It sounds pretty alarming, but the report did try to balance that, didn't it? By comparing California to, say, what happened in Turkey recently.
Yes, and that's a really important distinction to make. Those earthquakes in Turkey, a 7.8 followed quickly by a 7.5, were absolutely devastating. Massive destruction, terrible loss of life.
These horrific scenes.
Truly. But Dr. Abbott provided some crucial context. He said, essentially, that California is not likely to see that same level of destruction.
Why not? What's the difference?
Primarily our building codes. He wasn't saying there'd be no destruction here from a major quake. There certainly would be damage.
But not the widespread pancake collapse of buildings we saw in those images from Turkey.
Exactly. He explicitly said widespread collapse of buildings, no. Because California has invested heavily over decades in earthquake-resistant construction standards.
So those building codes, the retrofitting efforts, they actually make a tangible difference in saving lives and property.
A huge difference. We've learned from past quakes here, like Northridge 94, Loma Prieta 89, and those lessons get built into stricter codes for new construction and requirements for strengthening older, vulnerable buildings.
It's not a magic shield, obviously.
No, nothing makes a building completely earthquake-proof, but it dramatically improves earthquake resistance. It's designed so buildings might be damaged, might even be unusable after a huge quake, but they're much less likely to collapse catastrophically.
That's actually quite reassuring in a way.
Yep.
It puts the risk in perspective.
It does. It acknowledges the very real threat, but also highlights the protective measures that are in place here compared to some other seismically active parts of the world.
So, bringing it all back, this little 3.5 near Julian, which thankfully didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, the trigger for this whole conversation.
It really does serve as a useful nudge, doesn't it? A reminder of that constant underlying seismic risk we live with.
It absolutely does. And it really highlights why taking those preparedness steps we talked about isn't just like a theoretical exercise. It's practical.
It's an opportunity maybe for everyone listening to just do a quick mental check.
Yeah.
Or maybe more than mental.
Right. Like, honestly, ask yourself, do I know where my safe spots are? Is my kit ready to go? Or is it just a pile of stuff I meant to organize?
Have I actually talked to my family about the plan? Does everyone know the out-of-state contact, the meeting spots?
Exactly. These aren't huge, time-consuming things for the most part, but they could make a world of difference when seconds count and things are chaotic.
And knowing that while, yes, a big quake is possible and we need to be ready,
it's also helpful to hear from experts that the kind of utter devastation seen elsewhere is less likely here because of the steps California has taken.
it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Right. Acknowledging the risk without being paralyzed by fear and taking sensible precautions.
That's the perfect way to put it. Informed preparedness. Proactive resilience, not panic.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with today as we wrap up this deep dive is just that. Has this chat made you think about your preparedness level?
Yeah, what's one thing you could do this week?
Maybe it's finally securing that bookcase, or checking the expiration dates on the water in your kit, or just having that 5-minute conversation with your family.
Small steps add up.
Definitely. It's not about dwelling on the what if, but about taking those smart, practical steps, because earthquakes are just a fact of life here. So what's your next step going to be?